Welcome, everyone, to tonight's meeting of the San Fernando Valley chapter of the Climate Reality Project. This is our October, boy, I know what month it is, October chapter meeting. And we have a great couple guest speakers tonight. We are going to be covering sustainable burials, which is a topic that, comes for us all in the end, though many people prefer not to think about it until, it is upon us. I think it really behooves us to grab the bull by the horns and think ahead. So I'm really interested in learning some more information about what options are available to us right now. So before we dive into our meeting, I'd like to go ahead and begin with our land acknowledgement as we usually like to. And tonight's land acknowledgement will be read by one of our members, Alvin Waters. So Alvin is with the LA Neighborhood Council Sustainability Alliance, and he serves on the Energy Committee, working on advocacy trying to steer LA towards building decarbonization. They're also working on advocacy toward better practices for developers to properly cap idle and orphan oil wells in the Vista Hermosa community, which is based in the Echo Park area. He lives in Granada Hills, which is near where the Aliso Canyon leak happened. And so he's also working on advocating for conclusive data to be released from the UCLA Aliso Canyon Investigative Group, which is really important. His day job is with Grid Alternatives, a former speaker at one of our meetings, as a commercial project manager for solar and battery storage for underserved communities. Alvin, would you go ahead and unmute yourself?
Sure. And thank you. It's an honor, especially growing up in the San Fernando Valley and learning, how sacred our land is. So I will start with the land acknowledgement. A land acknowledgement is a formal statement that recognizes and respects the indigenous peoples as stewards of this land and the enduring relationship that exists between indigenous peoples and their traditional territories. It acknowledges the history that has brought us to reside on this land. The colonialism is present in our current systems and calls on us to be mindful of our own present participation in it. We acknowledge that we are on the traditional territory of the Kongva, Kiz, Tataviam, and Chumash tribes.
Thank you, Alvin. At this point, I would like to start our speaker portion. So first, Cheryl is going to introduce our first speaker of the evening. Cheryl, go ahead and unmute.
Chase Murdock is the head of family experience at Earth Funeral, a licensed funeral home specializing in soil transformation. Soil transformation, also referred to as human composting, is a natural, eco-friendly alternative to burial and cremation. Chase has been working in the field of advocating sustainable pre-planning for the end of life for the past 6 years. Thank you, Chase.
It's a pleasure to be here. I'm really glad to be here and want to thank Sharon for the invitation to be here. I'm honored to be here and speak to you all here this evening. I've got a lot of material. I'm going to try and finite time though. I'm going to try and cover through some of this. I know Olivia has some overlap with some of my materials. So without further ado, I'm going to jump into it. This is a presentation that I typically do with a colleague of mine that I'm going to be doing solo. But the first thing we like to ask is, when you left this world, what kind of flower, tree, or plant would you like to be? If you feel so inclined, type that in the chat. Otherwise, I'm just going to get started. We just gave the introduction. This is me. My name's Chase. I live in San Francisco. I'm originally from Kansas. And aside from being passionate about end-of-life space, and especially pre-planning, I'm also very passionate about waterways. I'm a big fisherman, and so I'm always trying to protect our water. Here's a brief agenda that we're going to cover. We're going to go quickly because I have a limited amount of time. If you have questions, please put them in the chat and I'll do my best to answer them. But we're going to cover caskets and cremation and some of their alternatives. We're going to talk about what we do at the company I work at called Earth Funeral. We're going to talk about what is soil transformation, what people do with the soil that they get from Earth, benefits of pre-planning, some perspectives from our families, and planning with Earth, and we'll have Q&A at the end. So as and as I know that Olivia was going here, is like traditional funerals are pretty tough on Mother Nature. I imagine a lot of you are familiar with this, but we've got pictured here a traditional casket. A lot of people may or may not know this, but oftentimes you have to put a cement block in the earth. Bodies are embalmed, takes a lot of wood, a lot of metal, a lot of materials that go into the earth, and it takes our valuable real estate and puts these chemicals and these metals and the wood in the earth, and the real estate can't be used for other purposes. On these slides, I've got some of the different options that are commonly chosen today and some of the environmental impacts as reported from places like the National Funeral Directors Association on what they are. So I'm going to spend most of our time talking about cremation because cremation today is the most common option chosen by Americans. In the 70s, it was mostly burial. Today, it's mostly cremation. And cremation is, by most measures, more environmentally friendly than traditional burial. However, it does release a decent amount of carbon. 535 pounds of carbon dioxide carbon goes into the atmosphere, and that's because it takes a lot of methane gas to incinerate the body. There's basically no water usage. There's no land usage with cremation, but it is a very energy intensive process, and it does release a lot of things into the air. But you get something back. You get the ashes back, and you can scatter those ashes, put them in a mantle, et cetera, et cetera. There's a relatively new practice called aquamation that is also called alkaline hydrolysis. This is the process of dissolving a body in using alkaline chemicals and hot water. You get something similar back to cremated remains. There's green burial, which is very popular now among folks. It is very environmentally friendly in many ways, except that it is not super available and accessible. It's often very expensive. And the reason that's the case is because, like traditional burial, it still takes surface area of the earth to lay someone to rest. So green burial, you're typically wrapping someone in a shroud, but you're not putting any embalming chemicals or anything. They're laid to rest in a shallow grave, typically without any marking, and then nature takes its course and breaks the body down over time. Green burial is a good option, except it's oftentimes very, very expensive, especially here in California. And traditional burial, I'm not going to spend a lot of time speaking to that. Many of you are familiar with that. Average cost, this is from the National Funeral Directors Association price list study. If you have had to bury someone on the full service burial down here or any of these other things, you may have known that these prices, when I see a plus sign here, it is plus. Like burials can be 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. I personally know a family that paid over $80,000 end to end for the plot, the headstone, and the service for burial. So it can be very expensive. Full service cremation, $6,250. Green burials, $5,000 plus. Like I said before, green burial, especially here in California, can be very, very expensive. I know in the Bay Area where I live, it can be quite expensive. I'm going to go quickly. I know there's time for Q&A at the end. I have more slides than I really have time to get through, but I'm going to tell you what our mission here at Earth. What we're doing is we're building something, and we're building and envisioning a world in which everyone's last act contributes to a healthier, happier planet. That's what we're doing. And a little bit about us. We were founded in 2020 by a team of funeral entrepreneurs and operators. You can see our team here on the right. If you look closely in the back right up here, I'm pictured in the back right there. We launched our first facility in Washington in 2022 because Washington was the first state to legalize the process that I'm going to be talking to you about, which is called natural organic reduction at the legal level, but more commonly called human composting, turning a body from a body into natural compost that can be used any way that you would use any other kind of compost in soil in a more energy efficient and environmentally friendly way to say goodbye. And it's something we've got to do with our bodies when we pass. We launched our facility in 2022 in Washington. We have a facility in Las Vegas. We actually just launched on the East Coast in New Jersey and Pennsylvania, and a little sneak peek, we're launching in Virginia and Maryland next month. We're going to be building a facility in Maryland. So it's going well. We're growing quickly, and it's driven by a demand. There are people, many people, such as yourselves potentially, who are wanting a green alternative, and they like this idea. So we've got a lot of experience, and I'm happy to be speaking here with you today. What is soil transformation, natural organic production, human composting? What is it? It is the process that is a gentle, natural process of transforming a human body into soil. And it's good for the people, good for the environment. It is a natural process, very akin to what would happen if you were to lay a body to rest on the forest floor. What animals have been doing forever and what we used to do as a species before society got so built up. It creates nutrient-rich soil, which families can keep, spread, or plant. And then the additional soil, if families aren't able to take all the soil back, we donate to conservation projects. You see in my background here is one of our conservation partners. It's the San Joaquin Riverland Trust. I always say their name wrong, but I think that's pretty close. And they're rehabilitating some of the riverlands in the San Joaquin River Valley, using some of the nutrient-rich soil from loved ones who have come into our care and have been turned to soil. Somebody wave their hand when we get 5 minutes left so I don't run out of time here. But I'm again going to try and walk you through how this process works. It takes 30 to 45 days. One of the top questions we get is, how long does it take? You'll see on this picture here is one of our vessels. We've invested millions of dollars into finding out the most efficient and environmentally efficient and effective way to naturally turn a body into soil. And what I was just having a conversation with some family friends tonight about this. Actually, the process truly only uses the human body, natural organic mulch and wood chips, and some dried wildflowers. Those are the only things, along with a little bit of water, that goes into the vessel that you see pictured here. And over 30 to 45 days, the body is turned completely into soil. That soil is then tested and returned to families so that they can have a memorial that they can live with, plant with, spread on trails, etc. The process, step one, the body is washed and wrapped in a biodegradable shroud, placed in one of the vessels you saw on the previous slide, along with the materials that I just outlined. Step two is over 30 to 45 days, the body is naturally transformed into nutrient-rich soil. That photo right there is an actual photo of the composted soil that comes out of the process when someone undergoes natural organic reduction with earth funeral. Lastly, the soil is returned. Families choose how much soil is returned. You can see pictured here is it's a quart-sized container that families can receive back. We'll send you as many as you'd like, and many families choose to send them to loved ones. They plant them in their gardens. I'll talk about that more here in a little bit. But that's the process. We bring the body into our care. We're a licensed funeral home. We serve the entire state of California, as well as Washington, Oregon, and bring you into our care, and we undergo the process, and then we return the soil to your family. Few quick questions that I know that you have in your mind. What happens to the bones? The number one question we get is what happens to the bones? Over the process, most of the smaller bones do break down, but there are the larger bones that remain. And so unlike cremation, where they're just blasting it with heat until it goes up, that calcium goes up into the atmosphere, we basically grind the bones into a fine powder, reintroduce it into the soil so all the calcium and nutrients are into the composted soil, and return it to the family members. I'm not going to answer all of these questions, but I'm going to speak to a few of these. Do you remove and recycle implants? Yes, we do. And any proceeds from recycled implants go to conservation projects. Can I still donate my organs? This is one I'm especially a proud proponent of. The answer is yes, you can still donate your organs. And I encourage everyone here, regardless of what you choose to do, to be an organ donor. And the reason I say that is because my wife is the recipient of a heart and double lung transplant through a very generous organ donor. And so she would not be here today if it weren't for organ donation. The average output is about 300 pounds of soil. And one of the questions we get is, how does one body create 300 pounds of soil? The simple math on this is to think it's 1 part body and it's 1 part mulch. That's the most basic way I can think about this. So if you weigh 150 pounds, we add about 150 pounds of mulch, and on the outside, there's about 300 pounds of soil. Like I said, 300 pounds of soil can be too much for some families to take back, so we send them in individual containers. However, some families do want all of the soil, and they come and pick it up from our facility, and they bring that soil back to do whatever they would like with it. You can do so many things with the soil. It is not tree pod burial, but that doesn't actually exist as a concept. It exists only as a concept, I guess I would say. But you can plant a tree into the composted soil of a loved one. And we have so many families that choose to do that. The last question is a big one. End of life. How do I know you'll still be in business? And one of the things I'll speak to a little bit more later, but one of the things that when I joined Earth in February, I've only been here for about 7 months, 8 months now, is that the consumer protection was super important to me, making sure that we are taking care of our families no matter what happens to Earth. We are a young and quickly growing company, but we're growing in a very sustainable and measured way. But when people pre-plan with Earth, you're actually buying an insurance contract through a company called Homesteaders Life Insurance. Homesteaders has been around for over 100 years. And the reason we do that, and it's legally required, it's a regulated industry, is because if something were to happen to my company, we were to go bankrupt, whatever, your money is still safe because we actually never receive the funds until you pass. And if we were to go under, your family would receive the proceeds from any pre-planned contracts that you might choose to purchase. How families use their soil. I'm sure I'm running out of, let me look at the time here. Yeah, I'm going to run out of time, but I'm going to go quickly here. Pot or plant. This is an actual family here. They've got the mother and the father on the right, the sister on the left. They lost their brother unexpectedly. And what they did is they took the soil and they sent it to all his loved ones and friends all over the country. And they took that soil and they did with it what I love about what we do. They did whatever they wanted to memorialize the person that they lost. And so some people planted gardens, some people spread it on trails, some people put it in an urn akin to what you might with cremated remains. You can do basically anything you want with the soil. Some people put it in a little bit of a locket to carry their loved one around with them. You can spread, share, or wear. We have so many great stories from families who have chosen Earth, who have done so many amazing things with the soil. What I love about it is it allows families to create the memorial that is right for them. As I mentioned before, any soil that is not, so again, 300 pounds of soil, many families don't want all the soil or are unable to take all of the soil because of just space restrictions. And so the rest goes to conservation projects. We have a conservation project in the Olympic Peninsula, and we have a conservation project here in California in the San Joaquin River Valley. And we're constantly looking for new conservation partners who can put this very nutrient-rich, bioavailable soil to work. And so they're rehabilitation projects that we are constantly looking for and partnering with. Keeping on going, why families choose Earth. I'm a big believer in pre-planning. And so that's a lot of what this presentation talks about is the value of pre-planning. I lost my mom last year to Alzheimer's, and I was so grateful that my father had purchased a pre-plan for mom because at the moment that she passed, it was hard. It sucked. I'm an only child. I was there by her side. And having to not worry about all the things that we had to immediately decide was such a blessing. There's so many questions that have to get answered, et cetera, et cetera. So I personally am a big believer in pre-planning, whether you choose Earth or whether you choose any means. I invite you all to seriously consider it because there's a lot of advantages to it. It provides your family space in the time of grief. I'm not going to read through all the things here. It also locks in price. So one of the things, just like everything else we hear in inflation, burial and funeral expenses typically double every 10 years. And what the value of pre-planning is, you're locking in that price that guarantees the services will be delivered to you and your family will have no out-of-pocket costs later, even if our prices double or quadruple. I hope we all live another 20, 40, 60 years, right? But if you're locking in by pre-planning, you are guaranteeing that your family won't have any out-of-pocket costs and you're locking in the price today. Another thing that we really like here at Earth is we have a travel protection plan that comes with it. So no matter where you pass, we will bring you back to the country with no charge to your family. And so if you're a traveler, whether you travel to the East Coast, Canada, or whether you're going to India, this part of our plan makes sure that you are brought back to our facility and into our care without your family having to pay any additional funds. And if you die overseas, that can be extremely expensive and also a logistical nightmare. The last reason people choose Earth is because of personal expression, environmental impact, and the legacy that they want to choose. A lot of our families that have chosen Earth have said, I want to make this decision for me. I haven't always been able to make all my own decisions in life, but this is important to me and what I want to choose. I'm going to go quickly through these slides, but we've been covered by CNN, CBS, AARP, more in the backyard here on the West Coast, San Francisco Chronicle, Wall Street Journal, et cetera, et cetera. This is what I am most proud of is what our families say about us. I'm going to briefly read this to you because Ryan was pre-planned with us in March of 2025. I encourage you to go to earthfuneral.com. You can see all of our reviews. He said an extraordinary alternative to traditional burial, but also a marvelous company to work with. The value of the service cannot be overstated. For a fraction of a traditional burial, you are contributing to an environmentally sound and meaningful disposition of your remains. The prepaid rate includes repatriation from anywhere in the world, which is a remarkable benefit. Staff were thoughtful, well-informed, and with zero pressure, which is understandable since the service sells itself. I hope that many others will choose this option when making their plans. All right, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about this. I hope we're doing okay for time. Earth, we're net carbon neutral. We buy all renewable energy in our process. All of the stuff that gets burned and goes in the air goes into the soil. So we're actually sequestering that carbon that would have otherwise gone into the air, into the soil here. Low water usage. We're green across the board. I'm going to keep moving in the interest of time and tell you about what our offer is here. So our package includes care team. The idea here, before I jump into this, is that we want a simple package that gives people everything they need and no bells and whistles, with no like gotchas, one-ups, or add-ons, nickels and diming, as my mother would say, on the package. So it takes care of everything. If you're in the state of California, we bring you into our care. Our funeral directors help your family make sure we're navigating all of the paperwork, and we undergo the soil transformation. The soil is returned to your family. We have a family portal so your family can see where you are in the process. We have worldwide travel protection. We send you cards so you can put them in your wallet. If you drop dead, people can open that up and they can say, this is what this person wants. We know where to call and who to call. You can give those cards to your family and friends. People really like that as a way to help plan together as a family and make sure that your loved ones are aware of your final wishes. And the last thing, I spoke to this before, but your money is always protected. I think that's super important. Whether you choose Earth or someone else, make sure that the money is going to a reputable insurance or a trust product. You don't want to be paying cash directly to someone if you're pre-planning. And we have the worldwide travel protection. I think I'm almost to the end here. I think I'm doing all right on time. Sorry, I feel rushed, but I'm really grateful. I see some questions maybe coming in here, but I want to make sure I can cover everything here. I'm going to bring it all together. Like I said, we have a care team on staff 7 days a week. We're a funeral home here in California. We'll answer your call whenever you need us. We have services and have a licensed funeral director and team. Paperwork and permits are all filed. You get the earth soil transformation, soil return to the family. You're supporting conservation projects. There's a digital portal for document management, worldwide travel protections. Your funds are safe and protected, which I cannot stress enough. That's a huge, huge important thing that I'm very proud that we do. Welcome folder and family cards. Peace of mind for you and your loved ones is really what you're getting. Most families, when we surveyed our families this summer, said that the primary reason they wanted to do this and pre-plan is to eliminate potential burden from their family when the time comes for them. Here in California, our price is $5,450 for everything you see on the screen. I'm going to put a link. If anybody's interested, you can schedule a call with one of our lovely care advisors. They're here to help figure out if this is the right thing for you. It's a zero pressure call. Absolutely lovely people, and we just want to help people, and that's why I love working here. In comparison, I put this here up on the screen. This is using, again, National Funeral Directors Association prices. I know Olivia is going to probably disagree maybe with some of these prices or have an opinion, but we're just using lit posted rates from the NFDA. And I think, there's also a discount. If you jot down Summer 500, I'll put the link into the chat here. If anybody, it won't take you away from the meeting. You can click in the link on the chat and schedule a call if you're interested in learning more. But I'm just really grateful that I got the opportunity to speak with you here today. If you click the link, you'll see this. I'm going to keep moving. You can apply the discount if you're interested. It's $500 off. Again, no pressure whatsoever. I'm just glad to be able to explain to you what we do here. One of the things, if you are interested in what we do, 30-day guarantee, no questions asked. That's actually legally required. So if you decide, you know what, I like this, maybe, and I'll tell my family about it, but they say, no way, mom, no way, dad, full refund, no questions asked. I think this is it. I'm glad you were here. Thank you for joining. I said us because I normally do this with a colleague of mine, but she wasn't able to join tonight. Sharon, thank you.
Thank you, Chase.
I
That
hope
was really
I got
informative.
through it. Oh, yeah, it was lightning round, but I'm grateful to be able to have had the time here to share that with you all today.
That's okay, Chase. We are providing a link with more information in the chat so that people can dive in if they want to find out more about everything that you've told us tonight. At this point, Cheryl, it's time to introduce our next speaker, Olivia Bareham.
Olivia Bareham is a teacher, healer, interfaith minister, and death midwife. Her study of death and dying began in the 1980s with patients dying of AIDS and has continued since, including through her own personal losses. In 2016, she partnered with a fellow death midwife to found Sacred Crossings Alternative Funeral Home, offering a full range of green, conscious, and kind mortuary and funeral services. Take it away, Olivia.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's a real pleasure to be here with everybody. Yes, thank you for that introduction. I run an alternative funeral home here in Los Angeles, and I also teach conscious dying. So this is my great pleasure to bring you my slideshow that I've been putting together slowly over the last 20 years. This is most of my work now is educating people as to what's possible and what we need to do to become more conscious about not only the way we die, but what happens to our body after we die. I'm just going to give you a real overview of different options. So in a conventional burial requires a hardwood casket, and on average, 2 trees are felled for every casket that's created. Also, every cemetery requires a concrete or fiberglass grave liner to prevent the soil subsidence and to maintain the landscaping. And many people are not aware of this when they go for a regular burial, because the sides of the grave are usually covered with fake green grass. So they don't realize that their casket is actually going into a concrete grave liner. So the body doesn't decompose and the casket sits in that concrete huge, and it takes a lot of men and equipment and energy to put that into the ground. That's what a regular burial anywhere in Los Angeles or most of California actually looks like. Vast amounts of water, fertilizers are necessary to maintain these cemetery grounds. So if you know of somebody who wants to be buried, which is fine, please try to encourage them to go for a green burial. This is what the US buries every single year, like thousands of gallons of embalming fluid, millions of steel for caskets, tons of copper and bronze, tons of concrete, and tons of steel that go into the vaults. This is just ridiculous that we're putting all of this insane stuff into the ground every single year. And if people were aware, then they could make this choice and we could begin to change the opinion of cemeteries so that they'll create these green cemeteries. There's 5 factors that constitutes a green burial. The body is not embalmed. The burial container is made of 100% natural biodegradable materials. This is an example of a beautiful silk shroud going into the ground. The casket or shroud is not placed inside a vault, but goes directly into the grave. Decomposition takes place naturally. This is another example of a shroud going into a green burial. And then the earth is put on top. Graves are not maintained, but become part of the natural habitat. This is, in fact, a Joshua Tree Memorial Park. These are green burials in Joshua Tree. There are not many designated green burial sites, unfortunately, but we're working on it. The last factor is there are no headstones. So natural rocks or plants or GPS coordinates are given to the family members so that they can stand exactly on the exact spot that the body was buried. The Green Burial Council is the place to go if you need any more information on green burials. Now, a natural burial does not conform to the strict regulations of the Green Burial Council, but it does offer a vault-free grave, and it encourages the shrouds or the natural burial containers. And many existing cemeteries are beginning to cordon off a section of the cemetery so that the family doesn't have to have the concrete vault. And this is an example of this. This is in Northern California. It's a regular cemetery, but they're saying, okay, you don't need a vault. There's one in Santa Monica that also offers that. And we're trying to persuade cemeteries to at least offer us a corner where we can do a green burial. This is at that cemetery in Northern California, and an example of how a shroud can be lowered by the family members directly into the grave. No equipment, no concrete liner. These are some examples of the natural green burial containers. They mustn't contain any screws, nails, or glues. These are beautiful bamboo and seagrass caskets that are made in South America. There's also linen and muslin shrouds, and we use these King Caraco shrouds. They're beautiful silk shrouds. They have handles so that they can be lowered. We have hemp rope on each side that we can lower the shroud into the grave and then toss the hemp handles, the rope on top of the shroud before filling in the grave. Here's a beautiful example of a felted wool shroud. And in fact, you can actually just buy a piece of fabric or buy a bolt of your favorite fabric somewhere. And this is what this lady did. She said, I love this blue. Can you wrap me in it? This is how I'd like to be buried. So it doesn't have to be costly. You don't have to have the $500 silk shroud. You can just have a beautiful piece of fabric. And that actual one became a full body sea burial. So there's the green burials, there's the natural burials, and this full body sea burial is what we are finding more and more families are using for our funeral home here in Southern California. So a full body sea burial is carried out in federal waters 6 miles from shore and a depth of 600 feet minimum to 2,000 feet. And we have a shelf here off of Long Beach and San Pedro where we can take the boat out for a full body sea burial. It's either buried in a metal casket. Believe it or not, this metal casket becomes part of the ocean habitat for sea creatures. The holes in the top make sure that the body does very slowly decompose on the sea floor. Or it's wrapped in a natural sailcloth shroud and weighted with up to 150 pounds of ballast. And this is what our full body sea burials will look like as we go out to sea. This beautiful shroud is custom made for the size of the person. The weight is in the head end. So when we tip it up, it goes straight to the bottom of the ocean. And these other river rocks are used for the family to either write a message on and throw it into the ocean after the body is deployed. We hold a simple funeral ceremony on board the vessel before the burial, which is usually very intimate, a few family members. It's gorgeous. You're out on the ocean. It's just a beautiful way to go. And the family are so involved at every little aspect of this this is what they love most of all. No strangers are involved. The family have their fingerprints all over this right up until the last minute. We also have another way to do it, which is where we take a witness boat out, which can hold up to 200 people on board, and they witness the burial that's happening from a smaller vessel. This is I'll show you how that looks. You toll the bell, and we're watching on our witness boat as the body is deployed. And then that boat pulls away, and our witness boat circles the graveyard, the grave. Oh, sorry. And the family can throw flowers. Our witness boat will circle 3 times, or if this has been a sea burial where the family were right there and tipped it up, again, we circle to make, and the water becomes very still, and that's where we can continue with prayers and blessings and a eulogy. It's stunning. And it's difficult to imagine if you've never done it, but this is the only way I'd like to go. And these are some of the benefits of a full body sea burial. You conserve natural resources. It's much, much less expensive than a regular burial. Eliminates the need to purchase a burial plot. No need to maintain cemetery grounds. It symbolizes a return to the ocean of life, which is a symbolic cycle of completion and harmony. It's a gorgeous, picturesque boat trip out to the sea cemetery. In this, the way people can share stories while they're on the boat, everybody begins to relax. And unlike a traditional funeral ceremony where everybody's in a small enclosed space and it's very structured, here it's very fluid, and you can really begin to feel your connection with your physical body to nature and the ocean. The good thing about this is the sea captain will give us the exact coordinates of where the body was buried, and then so every family member can be buried on exactly the same coordinates. So it is a nice thing to do every year. I've heard of families that will take a boat to those exact coordinates and hold their own little anniversary ceremony. We give you a sea burial certificate, and then the people have a place to go. Whenever they go to the beach, it stirs those memories of that day out on the ocean, knowing that your loved one has become one with the ocean of life. It's just a beautiful memory. A little bit about conventional cremations. I know Chase covered some of this, but it's not green as many people think it is. These are the facts. It takes 39,000 cubic feet to burn one body, and 80 pounds of CO2 are released into the air. Mercury from silver fillings are released into the atmosphere, which is a big problem in not so much in the US, but definitely in other countries where, you know, there's open fire cremations and they're still having these mercury fillings. The body is cremated. Oh, I'm sorry, I wanted to go back on that one. So those are the facts of what happens when we're cremated. And everybody is cremated in a simple cardboard cremation container. Even if you would like a shroud at a funeral ceremony, the shroud goes into these cardboard boxes for cremation. One ritual that Sacred Crossings offers to help process this grief is to decorate the cremation box. This is a lovely thing to do, especially if somebody can't, for whatever reason, they're not able to view the body. Maybe they can't afford to do a witness cremation. They just want a direct cremation. But this ritual where they can decorate the box is a powerful way. It's a statement of you're creating their vessel, and you can fill it with flowers and pictures. And we have at least 3 or 4 days to do this while we're getting the permit and the death certificate. So I like to take this simple cardboard plain box to the house, and 3 days later I go pick it up and then take it to the crematory, place the body inside, usually take a photo. And the loved one, the family feels like they've done one last thing for their loved one, and by making this little bed for them. These are some examples of how a decorated cremation box might look. And these are some options for cremation ashes. If you're going to scatter your ashes at sea, we highly recommend they go into one of these paper urns, and then the paper urn sinks into the water and the ashes are dispersed as the paper urn dissolves, rather than the ashes sitting on top of the water. These are some paper urns that you can keep at home on your mantle. Another beautiful option is turning the ashes to stone. This company, Parting Stone, will take all of the ashes and bring you back up to 50 to 60 of these beautiful white or gray pebbles, which can be distributed at a funeral service, a memorial service later. They can be just placed in a beautiful vessel somewhere in the home. It's just another alternative to that urn that sits on your mantle and then 10 years later, or maybe it's even in a box in your closet. I know a lot of people who haven't done anything with their loved one's ashes. So this is something to consider if you are thinking of cremation. Ashes to glass, make beautiful Christmas tree ornaments. Ashes to diamonds, that's another one. And ashes in jewelry. My daughter also takes people's ashes and puts them in the paint and paints beautiful paintings of their how they think heaven or where they're going. And then we take a beautiful painting back to the house that actually has pieces of bone sometimes in the painting. It's just beautiful. So here's some cremation alternatives. I know Chase mentioned this one is called alkaline hydrolysis. We call biocremation or water cremation. These are the facts. The body is placed in a steel chamber with a mixture of water and lye, potassium hydroxide. It stays, the pressure is increased to 145 pounds per square inch, and the temperature is raised to 356 degrees Fahrenheit. It stays in there for 3 to 4 hours. And then you are left with these soft, porous white bones, which are very similar to the bones that Chase is left with after the rest of the material on the body has been processed, either through decomposition, or in this case, it's turned to this sterile green-brown liquid. It actually, everything becomes liquid, and it's 100% alkaline. So it is a very green way to do it. Many people ask, well, what happens to this 5 to 10 gallons of green-brown liquid? That is actually flushed into the water supply. And because it's 100% alkaline, it actually assists in the water treatment, the processing for the water treatment. You can ask for it back, but most people, in most places, it goes back into the water supply. These are some of the benefits of water cremation. It offers more than 75% reduction of a carbon footprint and uses an 1/8 of amount of the energy of flame-based cremation. The mercury from the dental fillings is contained and recycled, not vaporized. It preserves 20% more bone fragments than flame cremation. And anyway, if in a fire cremation, it's not real bone. It's basically you're left with carbon. So in this case, you actually do get the actual bone back. So it can be used for putting on your garden or in a plant, and it will actually accelerate and assist the growth of anything you put on top of it. Whereas if you put ash from a flame cremation, you could actually destroy and kill plants because it's so acidic. And the resulting liquid can be used as fertilizer too. So everything can be used. Where am I going here? Okay. It's currently legal in 28 states now in the US. California is one of them. We don't have an alkaline hydrolysis unit yet in LA, but we use one in San Diego. There's one in Las Vegas. And we are in the process of getting one here in Los Angeles, so it shouldn't be too long. I know that was quick. If you have any questions, and if you have any, if you want more information out there on my website, sacredcrossings.com, if you'd like to utilize Sacred Crossings Funeral Home, we can help you with any one of those choices, and also refer you to Earth for the recomposition. And we also offer home funerals, which I didn't have time to talk about today, but which I highly recommend to save costs and to avoid the toxic embalming. That's one other thing that we never want to push our families through. So let me see if anyone has any questions.
Thank you, Olivia. That was wonderful. And both of these presentations were incredibly informative. So I know I've got questions. We've already got some questions in the chat. Go ahead and enter your questions in the chat if you have more, but I'm going to start asking questions to both of you. So the first one comes from Wayne, who's asking, how long after you die do you need to start either of these processes? Is there time for a traditional funeral? Kind of what is the timing from each of you? So Chase, do you want to go first on that one?
Sure. Yeah. The short answer is that many families choose to have a traditional funeral prior to being going through an earth soil transformation. So the only requisite with us is that you don't get embalmed. If you get embalmed, those chemicals are counter to the process. But as long as your body is kept cool, many families choose to do a traditional funeral. Again, you can also do organ donation. All of those things are. There's no immediacy to it. As long as you're brought into our care without being embalmed, we can take care of you.
And Olivia, are there any requirements for the methods that you mentioned in terms of timing?
No. If you wanted a home funeral, which we didn't discuss, but we like to know that ahead of time so that we can make sure that the body is viable to bring home and leave it home. We have the body at home for 3 days. So I like to know ahead of time how the person died and whether we can bring it home safely. But almost always that's the case. And no, for the natural burial, the green burial, and the full body sea burial, it's the same. You can take as long as some of them are at the coroner's for up to a week before the family can do anything anyway. So
I see.
the only restriction for limiting is if you're donating your body to science. Then they have to get it within a certain amount of time. But other than that, you're good.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, Chase, you mentioned that there are facilities in both Washington and Nevada, but not in California yet. Is that correct?
Yeah, so California has passed the law legalizing this, but they have not written the rules and regulations, and they have said you cannot operate a facility until 2027, I believe. And so we serve everyone in California, and we bring them into our care in our facility in Las Vegas. And so we will be opening facilities in California when we can, but it is not yet legal. While the law has been passed, it is not yet legal to operate. That's part of the California legislative cycle of just being a little bit sluggish on this. But it is legal, and it's relatively common to transport bodies across state lines. And if you pass in the near future, we bring you to Las Vegas. But if you sign up for a pre-plan, for example, and you've got 15 years left, we'll bring you to our nearest facility, which would at that point in time would be in California.
How difficult is it going to be to site those facilities? Are there restrictions on where such a facility could be?
Not really. Yes, typically not really. We find industrial space. It's basically a warehouse where we build out and have all of the different vessels. We have a bunch of different vessels in every facility so that we can undergo the process for multiple family members at a time. And we have a facility like in Las Vegas, very near the airport. We have a facility in Auburn. We're looking for facilities that are going to be both proximal to LA and San Francisco when we launch in California.
Ah, so you're already looking into the different places.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Great. Sounds like it's going to be ready to go in 2027 then.
That's the plan.
Now, Olivia, I have questions about, for example, the sea burial. Can that be done anywhere along the coast as long as it's 6 miles out?
It can, if you can find a captain who has a vessel and is willing to go from anywhere. Sacred Crossings goes, we do Oxnard, Ventura, we have one in San Luis Obispo. Long Beach, San Pedro, and San Diego. That's as high as we go. I think it's more difficult as you get further north. The weather makes it more difficult, and I think they might have to go even more than 6 miles to get the depth that they need. The 2,000 feet. So
How long a boat ride is 6 miles?
it's an hour.
An hour? That's
Just under, yeah. By the
nice.
time you've got everybody settled and, it's a
Yeah.
beautiful ride though. So it's an hour. The actual ceremony is about 15 minutes. But we usually take more time. There's usually dolphins and things to do. And so we say 2.5 hours. Just leave yourself 3 at the most to.
Now, both of you have talked about specific conservation sites where soil or bodies can be buried. So what are the restrictions that, prevent, I mean, obviously you can't just do this in your backyard, right? So what are the sites and what are they required to be in California?
Well, a green
Go ahead,
burial.
Olivia.
Well, I'm going to talk about there's it has to be a designated cemetery in order to put a body in the ground in California. You can't bury on your back porch, no. There are some states that do allow that, but we're not one of them. So it has to be a designated cemetery, and for the green burial, you have to comply with those 5 things that I mentioned. And the cemetery is designated by the Green Burial Council. And then anyone who goes there, you have to make sure that your casket complies with their stipulations, and they're very strict about it, understandably. So, and the natural burial is a little bit more flexible because you're already in a cemetery that has the concrete vault. So, it's just hard to find them, unfortunately. There's just not enough, and especially in LA, it's crazy. But
So it's basically space limited.
yeah, and you go to the cemetery and you say, please, I just don't want the vault. Can we do that? And can we just put the shroud in the ground? And the reason they say you need the vault is because they want to maintain their nice level lawns so that they can bring their lawn mowers and all their fertilizers and watering machines. And they don't want the grave to subside when the casket decomposes. Then people might trip and break their ankle and sue the cemetery. And so it's all done for order and legal, liability, that kind of thing, sadly.
For composted soil, you can really do almost anything with it. I mean, we've got people that grow gardens with it, spread it along hiking trails, and with our conservation groups, they actually want the soil because there's not like restrictions with regards to, if there's like state and parks and things like that, you'd want to check, but it's composted soil, so it is actually beneficial to the environment wherever it goes. And so our conservation partners are actually asking for it and are putting it to work as part of their conservation efforts.
So Alvin asked, how is the composted soil beneficial? Are you adding anything to it, or?
No, yeah, so it's pretty amazing. Like the human body, we are covered in microorganisms in our gut and on our skin. But what happens is there are no chemicals added whatsoever. So it is the natural breakdown of the organic matter of your body combining with the nitrogen-rich composted wood chips, or not compost, the wood chips and mulch that we add. And what comes out of it, I showed in the picture, is just composted soil. And so all of the nutrients in your body break down into their most basic forms and become bioavailable in the soil. All of our soil gets tested on a regular basis, make sure it's safe and nutrient rich. And so what it is really is like all of the energy and vitamins and minerals of your body become part of the soil, and that soil then becomes nutrient rich. So there's no chemicals that are added. It is the natural all of the natural elements that are part of the human body, the carbon, the calcium, everything that is a part of your body that goes into the soil that then helps plants to grow.
And Kathy was asking whether the composting is really any different from being buried in a shroud. Is it really just like speeding up the time for decay?
Yeah, I think there's a few different ways to think about that. I think the ultimate process that is happening is the same process, I think is the short answer. But the advantages as we see it, at least from what we do, is that you're not taking up space. It's typically much more affordable, and then you're giving your family back the soil so that they can create the memorial however they want. So again, some people, the natural burial typically, as Olivia mentioned, isn't a marked grave. So some people like the idea of having the soil, being able to plant a tree, put a little stone under the tree that says this is where mom was. So it gives you a little bit more flexibility, in at least in our view, with the composted soil. But it's fundamentally the same process. It just happens much more quickly because we've spent a lot of effort, and we have a couple PhDs that work for us to make sure that we are having the most energy efficient way that we can run this process efficiently, so that we can have an alternative that is truly sustainable.
So I know that you mentioned removing implants, and Olivia, you talked about, the mercury in fillings and that sort of stuff, but a couple of people are asking, what about other chemicals? Like if someone has undergone chemotherapy, pharmaceuticals near the
Yeah.
end of life, like how is that dealt with?
That's a great question, and it's a common question. What turns out, and this has also been tested, is that just like the human body, the process of the decomposition breaks down all those complex chemicals, whether you're on anti-cancer drugs or antidepressants or painkillers, or even if you've gone through radiation therapy for cancer, et cetera, et cetera. All these cases have been tested, and it's been shown that the soil comes out, and again, we test our soil regularly, but all the soil that comes out is safe and ready to be returned to nature. So it is truly a kind of a miracle of natural process breaking down any of these harsh chemicals so that you're ready to go back and nurture the earth.
So there are no conditions that would cause someone to be excluded from this.
The only condition to be excluded is if you die from some very, very rare diseases, which the United States government requires that you're cremated. That includes like Ebola, which is less than 0.01% of the population. But there are very few, very, very rare conditions. But it's just so uncommon. But it's a good question. It's just so uncommon that it's not a concern really that we're dealing with. So if you're sick or you COVID or however you pass, as long as you haven't been embalmed and we can bring you into our care, we can undergo soil transformation.
Oh, that's good to know. And Olivia, for the sea burial, do the same rules apply? Like there's no worry about chemicals, or, there's also a question about whether, putting fabric in the water, is that going to be harmful to sea life or anything like that? Are there any concerns with the sea burial?
The sea burial shroud, again, is 100% biodegradable. It's made of a real heavy sailcloth. And apparently, according to the researchers, when it hits the ocean floor, it bounces a little bit, and then it's covered with a very thin layer of sand when it gets there. And it takes 100 years for every particle of the shroud, which is 100% natural, and the bones or everything that's inside to completely become the ocean. So there aren't people think, oh, a lot of fishes are going to go in there and nibble at it. It's apparently that doesn't happen. It just all the biodegrading process happens very, very, very slowly altogether. And again, just as it is with the green burial, the chemicals they're transmuted just the same way as they are in the soil. The water does that to them. When you think of, but it's such a tiny, tiny, tiny amount compared to the toxic waste that's dumped into the ocean every day. It's laughable. If there is like somebody's taken some pharmaceuticals, yeah. So that isn't a consideration.
That's good to know. Feels like these are just, different forms of purification, and in the end, it's all good. All right. Well, we've kept you over time already, so I'm going to let you go. But first, I will ask everyone to unmute and give our speakers a round of applause. We really enjoyed this. It was incredibly informative. I know I had a lot to learn, and I certainly did tonight.
Thank you, guys. We really
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was really very helpful.
Excellent.